today, the growth assessment is really about helping to drive and develop a more diverse and innovative industry that is better for all of us who work in the industry, and make us more attractive as an industry as well, to allow us to fish in a much wider talent pool. Hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a really good understanding about the assessment that we've actually launched, and how that will help you to understand where you are currently in your approach to embedding fairness, inclusion and respect into your business, and what are the next steps you need to make to accelerate that journey, to really embedding that culture within your organisation. A few quick house rules before we started. You'll already notice that your cameras and microphones have turned off. We've got a number of discussion panels during the course of this morning, and when we have those discussion panels, we'll be obviously turning on the microphones and the cameras for those people on those discussion panels. But you'll be able to ask questions using the chat function throughout this morning, and my colleagues will be keeping a note of those questions as they come through. So you'll have the ability to ask those panels questions. It won't just be me chairing those sessions, asking the panels. I want to get your engagement in this morning as well, and get questions from the floor, as if we were in a real conference room rather than just a virtual conference room. Can I just flag up as well that live captioning is available? So if you want that live captioning, you need to go down to your toolbar within Teams, and you can switch that on yourself. Where you see the three dots on your Teams toolbar, if you go down there, you'll see the ability to turn on live captioning there as well. Moving down as well, I've talked already about the chats functionality. We'll also have the ability to give feedback at the end of the session through a feedback link that we'll provide to you. And all of our slides that we're showing today will be shared through the FIR program afterwards. So you'll get a link sent to you to be able to view the slides after today. So hopefully that's a bit of an introduction. Now I just want to remind you what we'll actually be covering off today. So hopefully you see on the screen in front of you the things that we'll be covering off today. So we're going to start off just in a few moments time, where I'll be doing a demonstration of the Fairness, Inclusion and Respect Growth Assessment. We're going live onto the Supply Chain School site. I'll be showing you how that actually works, how to conduct assessment, etc, etc. After that, I'm pleased to say I've got a panel with Asita Madhu from HS2, Belinda Blake from National Highways, and Kevin McLaughlin from McLaughlin Group, who the three of them are going to then be talking about understanding and developing your organisation's maturity on fairness, inclusion, respect, and why it's important to have somewhere to benchmark where you're actually at on that journey, and also provide a roadmap of what you need to do next to accelerate. So we'll be doing that, and that will take us through until about 10:20. Then I'll come back on, and then I'll be introducing a secondary panel where we'll be talking about the benefits of getting a third-party assessment against the standards that we've got within the Supply Chain School self-assessment. If you want to get a third-party assessment, what are the benefits? How do you go about doing that? And we'll be speaking to Kate Marsh and from the Danny Sullivan Group, and also really pleased to welcome Beth Nichols from Partnering in Property Management Limited from the northeast of England. Both Kate and Beth are what we call pioneers. They've been through the process of having that third-party assessment, and they'll be able to tell what it's like to get that independent advice and review of the assessment you've actually done. And again, we'll be opening up for a panel discussion at about 10:45, where you'll be able to ask questions of Kate and Beth. But we'll also be joined by John Rain from See Things and Alex Minette from Chas. They're the two organisations who are licensed to provide third-party accreditations and verifications against the FIR Growth Assessment. Then you're pleased to know about 11 o'clock we'll have a break, chance to stretch your legs, get yourself a cup of tea, etc, etc. And then after the break, many of you on the call are FIR ambassadors. Many of you are not on the call, who are on the call but are not FIR ambassadors, might be interested in becoming FIR ambassadors. So we're really pleased to also be able to showcase today some new functionality within the Supply Chain School in terms of the levels, what we're calling the FIR ambassador journey, where you can actually understand how you can move up and get support to move up from being a FIR ambassador to being a bronze, silver or gold FIR ambassador as you move forward. And we're going to demo that, show you how that works And then we'll be joined by my colleague Sarah, and then Christina Riley from Quinn London, and Rory Coffey from Danny Sullivan Group. Both Christina and Rory are ambassadors within the school and have been for many number of years, and just want to share their experience of how being a FIR ambassador has really helped them and their organisation. And then we'll all be finished. And I do promise that we will be finished by 12 o'clock at the very latest, if not a smidging earlier. So that's what we've got on the agenda today. So hopefully a nice busy Wednesday morning for all of you. So just a little bit of a reminder, for those of you who are not familiar with the Construction Leadership Council and its skills plan, Construction Leadership Council, very high level strategic body has been set up, and they've set some key targets for the industry about implementing the Fairness, Inclusion and Respect programme through the supply chain by June of this year. I'm really pleased that we're on with that, but we're helping construction operate with a more inclusive culture. I think that's what it's all about, and to encourage new entrants into the industry and to retain those skilled staff that we do have, and some targets that the industry have set for us. So that's kind of the kind of high level backing that the FIR programme has, and why it's really important that we've got this programme and we've got that leadership from, believe it or not, the Construction Leadership Council backing and endorsing what we're doing. In a few moments' time, I'll be taking you through and showing you and going online and showing the web-enabled FIR assessment that we've actually got. The key thing to that is that this FIR growth assessment, it's absolutely free of charge for all. There are British standards and international standards around EDI out there. There are other third-party EDI standards out there. Which require people to pay for. What's great about this is this assessment allows you to go on, undertake an assessment within your own organisation, completely confidential to yourselves, and benchmark yourselves against the total scores within the school, a total cohort, and also within your sector as well. So you might be painting and decorating, or you might be groundworks, or you might be plant hire, whatever it might be. You're able to benchmark against how others are doing within your sector. But because it's a growth assessment, it's great knowing where you are. It's great knowing what the next steps are, but we need to provide you support. And one thing that is quite unique about the FIR programme is that we've got what's called the FIR Toolkit. That has got over 350 different learning resources which will help support you on your journey. When you've completed your FIR assessment, you will get an automated action plan, a learning plan of things to do, where we select based upon where you've scored yourself. Computer intelligence selects based upon where you've scored yourself, the right resources, the right level of learning resources for the topics and issues that you need most support in. So I think that's really important to understand that. One thing I do need to flag up at this stage, if you are doing a FIR assessment, for those of you who are not familiar with how the school is actually structured, you can coming into the school is you can sign up for an account. It's completely free of charge. But you will find out within your organisation that there are 3 different levels. There's owners, the people who own the account within your organisation. There are administrators within your organisation, and then there are kind of users within the organisation. To do the FIR assessment, because it's at what we call a corporate level and it's for your business, you either need to be an owner or an administrator within your account. Otherwise, you could get the brand new recruit coming in and doing an assessment of your organisation and getting it completely wrong. But we'll explain about that in just a moment's time. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch from sharing my sharing this presentation that I'm on at the moment. So I'll just stop sharing that, and then I'm going to switch over to there we go. Hopefully you're all now seeing. Please somebody shout out if you're not, and go over to the growth assessment on the supply chain sustainability school. So if you're not familiar, supplychainschool.co.uk will bring you to the homepage for the supply chain school, which I'll just click on that now. So that's what you see there. So you'll be familiar with that, I'm sure. And then if you need to know more about the growth assessment, what I've just been talking about, we've got an actual landing page for that, which you can find by looking at topics, and you'll find within topics it says fairness, inclusion and respect, and underneath that you'll see the FIR growth assessment is there. By clicking on that, it remarkably takes you directly to that growth assessment. This page here just talks more about the growth assessment and allows you to click on there to click through to that. We'll do that in a moment. Also talks about the 5 topics that the growth assessment covers. So we're covering commitment. That's the strategy that you have in the business and the governance that you have behind that strategy. We talk about employment. So when we talk about employment, that is about it's about attraction, recruitment and retention within your organization. Then we look at working practices. What are the standard working practices within your organization when it comes to people and when it comes to EDI? Then very importantly for growth assessment, it's been designed by industry for industry. It's been designed by people who work in the construction sector for other organisations who work in the construction sector, which is really important. And the thing that we flagged up against other standards, which are outlined like the ISO standard for EDI, is that we need to look at the site. The site is so important when we're looking at our industry. What is the actual practice on site? So we have a whole section on the site environment. And the other thing which is really important in our industry is the supply chain. We're all very familiar, aren't we, with the client, the main contractor, the tier 1 contractor, the tier 2 contractor, and I don't know where you are in those tiers, but we've got this multi-tiered chain within the construction industry. So we need to really explore how EDI issues get transferred down through that supply chain. You might be getting your own business right, but what are you doing with your supply chain and those subcontractors that you're using as well? So the FIR assessment covers those 5 topics, and we'll jump into what those actually are. But to find out more about those 5 topics, you just click on any of these boxes here, and it takes you through to a landing page which talks more about that. And then you'll find some key resources that we've got in there, which you can click on, and it will take you through to them. It talked about leadership. So we've got, as we talked before, we talked about strategy, we talked about leadership, and we talked about governance. Those are the 3 subtopics that we are looking at within the area of commitment. So it's governance, it's leadership, and it's, as you can see there, it's strategy. And there's learning resources linked to all of those. We've just selected 4 here, but there are actually many more available within the school. So just clicking back again, that just gives you an idea on the growth assessment topics there. If we look at employment, again, you'll see that this works in the same way, and we're talking about attraction, and then we're talking about recruitment, and the third area that we're talking about is retention. So that's when we're looking at that subject. That's the second subject we'll be looking to test and give you that roadmap for where you do your FIR assessment. The third subject that we will actually be looking at, as we talked before, will be working practices. So if I click on that working practices page should just pop up now. Then again, within working practices, there's another 3 topics that we'll be looking at, and they are policies and procedures. And then we've got some model policies and procedures for you to look at. We've got some e-learning for you to look at as well, and some real, hopefully some resources based at either beginner level, intermediate level, or even expert level to look at. Moving down, we actually look at working culture. What's the culture within your organisation? Again, a mixture of videos, documents, and e-learning. And then moving down further on is how do we go about monitoring diversity within the organisation? So if you don't already do that, for example, we've got tools for being able to do that with all the right questions to ask. We've got an annual diversity survey that you can link to and record and add in. So if you're in supply chains to transport or infrastructure companies, you can report into that and get benchmarked much more widely. And I would say guidance from various webinars that we've run in the past, and even a web link on when workforce monitoring goes too far, which is quite fascinating, about companies who've just pushed that workforce monitoring far too far. Just popping back again, we've now looked at three of the 5 subjects within the FIR growth assessment. The 4th one, if you remember, was site environment. So this is why it's so important. So when we look at site environment, that's what are we doing on site? What are we doing on site to make sure that your organisation is striving to set that right culture on site? What are we doing to adapt our site? And we've got lots of learning, videos, case studies, and e-learning available for you to learn about that as well. Then we also, your sites work in communities. So what do you do when you're working on a site to engage and reflect the practice of the local community, and to make sure that we're a good neighbour to that local community? And then the third subject we look at is communications. How do we communicate effectively with the local community and with people on site, which I think is really important indeed. So those are the 3 subtopics under the issue of site environment. And for those who've been doing your counting, you'll realise now we're onto our 5th topic within the FIR Growth Assessment, and that's supply chain. If I just click on that again, and you'll see that we've got the magic 3 will pop up again. And those, first of all, procurement. How do we actually look at driving fairness, inclusion, respect through procurement as an organisation? Again, a whole range of learning resources on that. And then as we move down, how do we manage the supply chain? Not once we've just procured them, but how do we manage our supply chain? Those suppliers that we rely on from job to job, from project to project, and we've built up relationships over months, years, perhaps in some cases even decades. We really rely on those suppliers, but are we actually managing those suppliers when it comes to issues around equality and diversity and inclusion? And finally, supply chain diversity. Are we actually asking our supply chain about their own diversity? Are we actually encouraging businesses which might be women-owned businesses or ethnic minority-owned businesses, or are we reaching out to veteran businesses from the military, etc., etc.? You know, what are we doing to actually engage there? So, as you can see there, we've got 5 topics that we examine within the FIR growth assessment, and within each of those 5 topics, you'll then get 3 questions, and each of those 3 questions you'll get this FIR growth assessment you see here, where you can move up the various levels from getting started, pockets of good practice, to strategic, embedded, to external influencers. Now remember, we're not that worried where you are on this journey. What we're trying to do as an education platform and as a growth platform, we're trying to move you from left to right. We're trying to get you over time better and better, which is through the learning that we provide. So, okay, how do we go about actually doing the self-assessment? Well, you can click on this button here, take the growth assessment. But one thing you need to do first of all, and just remind for those of you who might not be quite as familiar as I with the system, you need to click on this button here which says dashboard. If it doesn't already say dashboard, it will say login. Or if you haven't got an account, it'll say sign up. There'll be a green button saying either sign in or log in. I've already logged in, and when you log in, it takes you through to your personal learning management page, which brings together all the learning that you have, a whole range of what we call personal assessments. These are training needs assessments you can do on lots of different topics within the school. You can see I've got 9 different topics I've done there. I'll just do a shout out there as well. If you're an ambassador of the school, you'll see you'll get your various ratings are shown on that ambassador tile there as well, or you can sign up for an ambassador journey there. More about that after the break. But what you need to do, you need to just reminding you here about this is what your action plans and your activity. So the great thing about these personal dashboards you get in the supply chain school is any learning that you do through the school is actually all collected up, and a record of it is kept here, so you can evidence the continual professional development you're doing as an individual. Now, to do a FIR assessment, it's about FIR growth assessment. It's about your organisation. It's not about your individual knowledge. So you need to click on either your logo, if you put your logo in here, or indeed it might just say the first initial of your organisation. Just if you want, if you've got a membership within the school but you haven't personalised your dashboard yet, you just use just a little tip. You just use the settings button, and using the settings button that enables you to change by viewing my profile. It enables you to actually just upload your picture or upload your company logo. So if I click on that button there, that takes me straight away over to my company dashboard. So I've become smaller, my logo becomes bigger, and my company name is on there. So that takes me to my company dashboard. And to remind you, on your company dashboard, to do an assessment, you need to be either an owner of the site, or you need to be an admin. If you don't know who that is, that's easy to work out. You scroll down the page and it'll say our people. And on this little box here where it says our people, you can see in my organisation, Wendy's our owner, but you can view by clicking on the view all colleagues box there. You can very, very quickly get a list of all your colleagues, and it tells you whether you're an administrator or simply a user within the site. So you're an owner, an administrator, or a user of the system. Yeah. So you need to be an admin to actually do an assessment. So to do an assessment, you need to just pick the fairness, inclusion, and respect FIR topic here. So that depending on how many topics you've got for yourself within the school, you need to pick the FIR topic. If the FIR topic isn't appearing there, And the simple thing you need to do is just go to your company profile again, and under company profile, when you click on that, just make sure that it actually says on here that you've actually got the third topic within it. If you haven't, you can edit your profile there, and edit that profile. That enables you to then tick that fairness, inclusion, and respect is important to your organisation, and that will enable you to do the assessment. So do that very easily by doing the editing your profile from your company dashboard. So I just want to click back to my company dashboard. There we go. So having done that, we can then choose which company assessment we need to do. Clearly, we're here for the FIR Growth Assessment, which is what we want to do now. So so here we go. So let's go off and do that. So I click that, see FIR's there. And bear in mind, the output of all this, you see, you're going to get a benchmark like this little radar chart. So this is, I've already completed it earlier. We've got my score, and it shows that under employment and working practices, we're scoring above the average. But as you can see here on supply chain, and also on site environment, we're scoring beneath the averages. And we can see very simply by opening up, you're showing your data there, what the scores we've got. So your scores, the blue scores here, the school's average here, and the sector averages there. And you can pick which sector you're in. So we're in professional services, so you can pick 3 sectors that you're in. So you might be doing dry lining, interiors, and painting and decorating, and you can pick the one which is relevant for yourself. So to do the assessment, so that's what it's going to look like at the end. To do an actual assessment, you click on there, answer a few kind of normal T's and C's questions, and let's get started. And when we press the Get Started button, we'll then get those 5 subjects we talked about before, about commitment, about strategy, etc., which will come through. Just take a moment whilst that loads. Apologies, my internet's running a little bit slow today, and I apologise for that. But here we go. So there you go. We've got those subtopics on the left-hand side of commitment, employment, working practices, site environment, and supply chain. And then very simply, to do this, you work through those within each of those 5 subtopics, you work through the 3 individual questions within that. And we've presented you with a range of statements. And the trick is to go through this and find the statement which best highlights what you're doing as an organization, which one best reflects what you're doing as an organization. First statement is that you're just beginning on your journey. The 5th statement is the one about where you're an external influencer. But if you're worried about which level you're at, remember, it's not a test. It's about you assessing yourselves and understanding what your next steps are. So, for example, if you understand the drivers of major clients and you report diversity data, you'd click the button here. But then you would know that next step of what you need to do to get to the next stage is that you've actually got a first strategy, and you're working towards creating that culture. So if you're worried about what level you should be at, and you think, well, I do some of the things the next level up, but not all of them, but I do all of the things in the level beneath, what you need to do is go for the lower level, because then we can provide you learning which will enable you to do all the things to get to the next level up. So your roadmap is presented by these statements that you see here, and you can download all these statements from the FIR toolkit as well. We've got an Excel spreadsheet with all these in, which you can actually download, or of course you can go and revisit them at any time. And you work your way through 15 questions. It sounds simple, quite a bit of thought. I mean, my best advice in terms of doing this would not be to do it on your own, but to get some key stakeholders in your business around the table, depending how big you are. We're a small organisation. I employ 30 odd people. We found when we did this, we probably had to get about 5 people around the table, people who lead different business units with my organisation, a couple of directors and our HR lead. And that really helped us form an opinion about where we collectively thought we were. So I think that was a probably good advice for you. Get together, talk it through, use it as an exercise to really understand where you are at the moment and what your next steps is on your growth journey. So you work your way through. And I won't click all the answers because you see I've already done that. You'll be able to do that at your leisure. But again, going through those topics we talked about for working practices. The next we move on to site environment. After site environment, by now you should be remembering that we then move on to supply chain. And that's our final one. And when we get to the end, we press submit your answers. So I'm going to submit my answers now. And when I submit my answers, it will take a few moments as the artificial intelligence goes off and looks at the assessments that you've actually made about your organization. And it should then come up with a tailored action plan, as it has done there. And you can view that action plan. And remember, I said that we didn't really know much about our level of knowledge was lower on site, and it was lower on supply chain. So we should be seeing things. Oh, that's good. Always good when it works. There you see. So we're getting advised to go to do the e-learning module on FIR on site. And why it matters the most, and then gender decoded for job ads, building people, PQQs for members and providers, guidance. Remember, we scored ourselves quite low when it came to supply chain. So you can see there, for example, we're getting resources which are relevant to where our skills gaps actually were. And you can click on any of these, and by clicking on any of these, it just takes you straight through to the various learning resources. And as you work through them, you'll get a green tick in these boxes. And then once you've finished doing your action plan, you can then actually press the button on here, say completed that action plan, and then you can go off and do another assessment. If you find you want to do another assessment, just one tip to you, you need to press the completed action plan to allow you to do another assessment. Yeah, so we have that kind of functionality. We really want to encourage you to work through your learning before you do another assessment, because we're looking to understand the distance travelled. So once you've done all of that, we then remind you that you've done all of that. You'll then get back to your dashboard, and on your dashboard, you'll get your radar chart showing where you are in blue against where the skills averages are for the various sectors, and again, professional services, where we're performing above or below the averages. So that's how it works. As simple as that. Hopefully that really helps us a really good understanding for you in terms of how that assessment works. So I'll just take a pause there, and what I'd like to do now is invite to the screen. I'll stop sharing my screen and invite my first three panelists onto the stage. It's not really a stage, is it? But so if I'll just stop sharing my screen, there we go. And if I just ask my colleague Jenny, she could open up the video screens for Asita, Belinda, and Kevin, please. Good morning, Asita. Good morning, Belinda.
Morning.
Excellent. And good morning, Kevin. So first of all, just do quick introductions. Asita is the Senior Quality, Diversity, Inclusion Manager for the supply chain at HS2. Really important that they've identified how important HS2 is. Asita, just say a couple of words of hello and good morning.
Yeah, good morning all. I know there's over 100 people on this workshop and session. It's great to see so many people attending. So my role pretty much is geared towards looking at procurement and tendering and make sure we build those inclusive and diverse requirements in the contract. And the most important contract, of course, for HS2 across construction and professional services. And currently we have about 24 live contracts with HS2 that has EDI requirements, against which the suppliers deliver once those contracts are live, and I manage that through the contract phase, and of course then roll out and develop best practice that we can share within the sector. So that's primarily my responsibility.
Excellent, that's really great. Thank you very much, Asita, for that. Then over to Belinda. Belinda been an EDI specialist since 2003, where she began her career in the voluntary sector, then moved to the public sector in 2015. Belinda's current role is a Senior EDI Policy Advisor, leading the supply chain and quality strand for National Highways. So good morning, Belinda.
Morning, Ian. Morning, everyone.
And thank you. And then actually, I'd like to introduce Kevin McLaughlin. Kevin McLaughlin, MBE, he's the founder and managing director of London-based small and medium-sized business, because we're going to be hearing from two large infrastructure clients as well. But when it comes down to it, you know, how will this help small and medium-sized businesses? So Kevin, do you want to just quickly say hello?
Hello, good morning. Been in the business since the mid-70s, so a lot of water gone under the bridge and a lot of changes, and there's a lot of positivity about fairness and inclusion these days where there wasn't before.
Thank you, Kevin. Before we dive into questions for the panel, we'll be looking at the questions coming through. I just wanted to share a short film that Kevin shared with me the other day, just to remind us why developing a culture of fairness, inclusion, and respect is so important. So just bear with a minute as I get the technology right. Let's press the right buttons. So hopefully you're now all seeing that presentation there. That's good. Cool. I'll just It's a moment when my computer decided to do something. I'm not sure why. How do I get rid of that? So, okay, just press that there and okay, so move on to the next slide. Hopefully somebody give me a thumbs up that the sound comes through okay with this. I'll just press the play button.
Since we joined Heart of the City, we've worked on our training for unemployed people coming into the industry. When we started in 2012, it was just for Islington 16 to 18-year-old need. Approximately within a year, it became Pan London. Every day they have to be in before the course starts, so it's an 8 o'clock start, which is our industry. They have to be there for 7:45. And then they're set tasks. When they start the course, there'll be 10, 12 individuals. By the end of the course, they'll be working together, communicating, and for younger people, it's something that they've never done before. To date, there's 800 people gone through the course, of which approximately 40% have secured employment. 20, 30 different nationalities, care leavers, homeless people, ex-offenders, probation service, gangs unit, it just goes on. Well, I come from the local community and people have always got jobs from a hard-to-reach background. We still employ the same type of people. It just gives a lot more people chances.
Hopefully that came through okay, did it, Kevin? Yeah, Kevin, I think that really, to me, says why we're trying to do it. And maybe I'll start off a question directly for you, Kevin. Actually, as a small business, what benefits do you get from embedding a culture of fairness and inclusion, and respect into your organisation?
I think SMEs, it's a lot easier to the people employed, because if you was to be set out a target of employing people with great A levels, this, that, you're going to be disappointed. So you've got to fish from a pond where everyone comes in. And as with a lot of things in life, and it's not an altruistic thing, but if you give someone a chance, you'll be amazed what people can do. And at the end of the day, we're an SME and we're here for one reason, that's to make money. And if we can't, and we can only make money using people, working with people. And so it's always, since I came into the industry in the 70s, it's always been the case. I worked with ex-offenders on site who were given a chance then, and now there's more females and there's so much more diverse. But the business cannot perform unless it's got a mix of people, and we don't target a certain amount. It's just people, to give them a chance to learn the job. That's the problem. Getting that foot in the door is the biggest thing.
That's really great. Belinda, just coming, you've been intimately involved in the development of this for growth assessment. Do you want to give me a bit of the background? Where were you coming from as an organisation?
Yeah, so the idea of this growth matrix, which sort of the kernel of it started in an equality, diversity and inclusion exec steering group a couple of years ago. They tasked me and our Supplier Diversity Forum to go away and to find out which one benchmark or accreditation could drive this wonderful change that we want to see in our industry. Because they just thought that one size might fit all. So we went away and we looked at all the different kinds of accreditations and benchmarks that were available out there, and to see what difference they were actually making to our suppliers. So we surveyed quite a lot of our supply chain to find out whether they were using them, what kind they were using, and the difference it was making to their company. And what we actually ended up finding is there isn't this golden one that can answer everything that our sector needs. There isn't this one way of doing things. And there was not one that stood out that was really driving the requisite change that we were looking for. But we did find that our suppliers are all of different sizes, have all got different resources and finances available to do these kind of accreditations and benchmarks, and are actually at different stages on their journey. And so we had to go back to the drawing board and think about, well, what do we really want to do? Why are we doing this? And how can we develop it? So we were then tasked with going away and developing our own sort of maturity growth matrix. So we again went out to our suppliers. We asked them about the kinds of things that they were looking at and doing. We compared all the different kinds of sort of accreditations and benchmarks that were out there to pull out the kind of themes and the topics and the activity for the growth right across the matrices, and collated it all and created what we were calling an EDI growth matrix, which we then shared with the school, who, along with other key clients like HS2 and Network Rail, we looked at and realised that actually we could all use it, but there may be a better way of doing it. And therefore, the school took it up, and it has ended up being what Ian has just run through today. And for me, each iteration has been a greater improvement on what's gone before. It is really great to see that A, this is free, that B, it is available for any size of employer, so any size of company can use this. As long as they answer the questions honestly, they will be signposted to support that will help them improve in the EDI space, because at National Highways we need to know that the companies we are tendering with, that we're working with, have got the same sort of EDI ambitions and focus that we have, but also to know that that kind of focus is being flowed out onto site. And so this matrix really looks at all the areas that's important to National Highways. It's the people and places, it's the customer and community, it's the supply chain, it's the governance, it's what are our working practices like. So we are delighted really to be supporting this and to have been instrumental with our Suppliers Diversity Forum in creating this and seeing it as it is today.
That's great. Thanks, Belinda. I had a question which actually from in the chat, in actual fact. It says, are these assessments only applicable to organisations in the supply chain, or can they be used by a service provider as well?
I think anyone can use it. It might be that some of the questions you might not think are applicable. And obviously, if they're not applicable, that will mean when you get to the end of it, your assessment will say you need to improve in that area. But you could park that and use the categories that are applicable to you. So yeah, I think anyone can use it, and any size company can use it. And it is just a good way for you to see where you are as an organisation and shine a little bit of a light on yourselves and work out which areas you need to improve. And I think the other thing that is very useful about this matrix is we also consulted with other external accreditations to ensure that anyone who has done this sort of assessment and work through their improvement plan could then potentially go on to be accredited by some other external body as well. We were trying to align as much as we could with whatever else was out there.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Yes, if you look at investors in Diversity UK or the Clear Assured standard, or if you look at the ISO standard, you'll find that if you do the work for here, you'll be aligning yourselves to any future third-party assessment that you actually want. Kevin, I know yourself and Claire went through the assessment, didn't you? And how did you find it as you went through it? You know, as a small employer in painter and decorator.
I think the kind of message that, after going through it, is not to be daunted by it, because it's a comprehensive agenda that you go through, and you've got to accept that you're not going to tick the top box. And I would like to think that we are quite involved in diversity, but the questions were pitched in such a way that you fit between them, and I found that really good. So we opted to go for the lesser model, but it's quite clear, as it said in the presentation, or you said earlier, Ian, it's not an exam, it's not a test, it's an actual, it's a platform to see where you are, and we found it really good. And with the action plan coming out that we can work on, because SMEs have got a completely different agenda to a tier one with a big HR system, etc., etc. And you've got to take that, you've got to accept that you are not going to be a tier one with every single item in there. You're not going to be able to facilitate some of the stuff that tier one employers can, people who employ thousands of people. But it is really good for the benchmark to see where you are. So it's not something that, if you're thinking about it, to be concerned with, and it's not something that will make you feel inadequate. It's something that actually you think, no, actually we actually do quite well on this, and we know what we do as a business, and it gives the action plan gives us plenty to work on.
Thanks, Kevin. That's really useful, and I'll just reiterate that. I mean, ourselves as an organisation went through it, and I think our average score was just under 3. We looked at our and which kind of shocked me a little bit, because I thought, we're in the forefront of this, leading this agenda, but we're only scoring 2.9 or something like that. Yeah, but that's great, because it actually gave us as a business real areas we can concentrate on as improving. So, you know, I was slightly surprised, but pleased, because it's about growth, it's about learning, it's about development. That's the point of an education program. And there, if you do all those things, there's benefits to your business and benefits to your customers as well, which is probably a nice segue to Asita. Asita, HS2, you talked about where you've embedded into, I think it was 20 odd different projects, the requirements for organizations to have EDI programs, and I believe also you asked them to do an EDI assessment as well, don't you? Can you just talk us through why you asked that and what the benefits of that are, etc., or what you see as the benefits?
Yes, certainly. And I think really we wanted to be in a position to make a difference to the sector in terms of how we work with suppliers. To our knowledge, there wasn't anything in the market, either with infrastructure program, where you had the opportunity to ask about accreditation, and whether that's in a self-assessment in the case of this FIR Growth Assessment tool, or whether that was an external accreditation by a recognized body. And so it was important that we set something that actually delivered impact. And that's the key thing around this. It's not a nice to have. It's not something people go through and say, right, at the end of it, it felt good to do that. There's actual evidence and practical outcomes of what you need to do next to improve. And people are always surprised. When I say people, those who go through the assessment as companies, once they've completed, they're surprised to their perception of where they think they are around diversity and the reality of where they are. Often there's a mismatch, and that's nothing to worry about. It just means that what we're then in a position to do is to support you through that. And that's the great thing about this for us at HS2. We found that many suppliers that have gone through this, some of those are at tier 1, so they're direct suppliers to us, but some are subcontractors. So what it means is that we're in a position to be able to sit with them and go through elements of where they feel there are challenges. And it might be around their recruitment, it might be things to do with their training that needs improvement. It might have been to do with things around their policy approach and how they embed that within their organization. But certainly we found that where we have encouragement that this is not a tick box approach and that it delivers added value, it works really well, because people then see that it adds benefit to their business. One of the things we found our suppliers doing is that corporately they've been able to achieve the accreditation, not just for the contract, but it helps them for future opportunities within public procurement. So they can win contracts, they know what the level playing field is, and they quickly start to benchmark themselves against other organizations, because they know where they are and they think, well, actually, who are in the sector with us as competitors and other suppliers, how well are they doing on diversity? So it's a healthy, competitive environment that helps you to sort of set the level playing field.
I think that's really useful. We've had a couple of questions in the chat, which I might point them to you to start with. One of the questions is, how long would you suggest between assessments? So when you get third-party accreditations, how long do they last for? And also around this self-assessment, how long would you think people how often should they do this?
I think typically you find with most assessments, certainly with the FIR Growth Assessment, you will need a sort of 2 to 3 years, depending how long your contract is with the supplier. We've got some longer term contract, 5-10 years, if not longer, with HS2. So I would say sort of a 2 to 3 years is healthy, because things change. There's enough time for things to change so that you're in a position where you can see you've made a difference on diversity. And then you can go back to reassess yourself and say, right, okay, 2 years ago, this is where we're at. How much have we improved? Have we done all the things that we expect to do in order to make a difference? And that's realistic, I think, as a time span.
Yeah, I think you're pretty right there, Asita. And I don't know if Belinda, you want to come in on that as well in terms of that time span, and it's kind of the learning which goes with it in between, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, a lot of this depends on what resources you've got available to invest in driving the change or the activities that has been highlighted as you need to strengthen. But definitely, a 2-year period, I think anything earlier than that, you might not see the growth or the movement that you would expect to see. But also recognising you need to invest time particularly in delivering the activities and really focusing on those areas that you need to improve on in order to move through the growth matrix.
Thanks, Belinda. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's like remembering back to my school days. You learn, you get knowledge, but you've got to apply that knowledge, haven't you? So it's the application of the knowledge which is important, and the school can help you with it. With on lots of issues, but around fairness, inclusion, respect, will help you with the 5 different areas we've looked at, and give you model policies, show you what the drivers are, show you good case studies, give you that background knowledge. But you've still got to then take that knowledge and say, well, how does that apply to my business, and what do I need to do the next steps? And Kevin, do you want to come in there as well? As a small business, because obviously small business, you probably, if you're anything like me, you don't have an HR team and an internal learning management system and a talent attraction department or something like that. I mean, how does it work in a small organisation? Yeah.
I think with us, from when we started the business in the late 80s, you just employ people to do the job, and then as you progress, you get to know the people over the years, and then you start to look at what their attributes are, and then what can we do, and then you look at the business, and then this is where the industry now has become more involved in fairness and inclusion, and that is when you start to look at how you run your business. And we would no way we have all the ISOs, etc., but we do not have in place the systems to run a big fairness, inclusion, respect across the board. A supply chain, we would use the other subcontractor to do scaffolding, etc., but we wouldn't be definitely not talking to them about fairness and inclusion. So it's a long journey. But what I think from an SME point of view, and since I've been involved with the supply chain school, the industry really needs to encourage people, and then I think, like, you've got 2 big players on this panel. If it can cascade down through to the supply chain, that you will be shown a preference if you are on this journey, because it is a journey, and it's more than likely a never-ending journey with a lot of things in business. Things change, and as Asita said there, a few years and then there'll be a different regime in place or whatever. But if the industry and ultimately the main clients and the tier 1 contractors are going to really say, no, we want our supply chain, and you've got an assessment that shows where you benchmarked, then I think that's really important, and it will get traction within the industry. Or otherwise, what happens with our industry when you get down to tier 2, 3 people, it's about bottom line and getting onto the supply chain, winning the job, normally by bottom line, and it's got to become more important to the industry. And I think the change that I spoke earlier, I think our industry has changed an enormous amount in attitude and opinion in the last 10 years. Now it's got to be driven through by other people at the CLC to make sure that the supply chains and then people in SMEs can see a benefit in doing it, or else we revert back to the old days, which is bottom line in not caring about anyone.
Let's pick up on those benefits. Belinda or Asita, do you want to come in and say what are the wider industry benefits that you can see from embedding this culture of fairness, inclusion, respect? And we like to say it's making the industry better for all, but what does that mean?
Well, I think I get alerts popping in my inbox sort of daily, if not weekly, that tells me our sector is in a dire straits, that there are people leaving in droves, that we possibly are not going to have enough people to deliver the work when it comes along, a recognition that the way we are going to work in the future could look different, and therefore we really need to be thinking about bringing in different kinds of people with different kinds of skills to do the work that is going to be coming down the line. So unless we diversify and we make ourselves an attractive proposition, we are not going to be able to deliver the work the government is paying the likes of National Highways or HS2 to do. And sort of ED&I is essential to this. Everyone wants to go to work to feel like they're valued and included and they belong, and doing assessments like this or delivering different kinds of work really helps us all shine a laser focus on what we're like as organisations and whether we are attractive to different kinds of people and whether we can accommodate them and whether we can support them to progress and achieve all that they might want to achieve.
Excellent, that's great. So Sita, if you want to come in on that, because obviously Belinda's talked about, you know, the wider talent pool and kind of the benefits to the individual, and then within the business as well. What other benefits, you know, could a business see if they're embedding this kind of wider culture?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's a starting point. If you're going to use this assessment tool and you're in a position to bid for a contract, or you're already with an existing supplier like HS2, you will quickly learn where you're at. It's free to you at the point of use. And actually, it's a good assessment to then know what work needs to be done. It helps you in the planning. Many of the businesses and contractors who work with us, it helps them to plan what are the areas we need to focus on, how do we get the resource to be deployed to do that, and how then do we deliver over the lifetime of the contract. So it's a great tool. And secondly, also, you have to think about the sort of skills challenge that we have within the sector. Construction as it stands, you know, there's a multitude of challenge in getting skills, not only within the UK, but sometimes even getting skills from abroad. We've then got the layers around modern slavery and how you bring suppliers on board. It's a good way of risk management because there's so much risk within the sector. And what we found is that actually some of the conversations covers many areas within construction. It's a good thing that when you look at this tool, is very relevant to the very thing people recognize within construction. And so it's a tool that can easily not only be workable within an office environment, it can work within a construction site. And we know how notoriously difficult it is to deliver training on a construction site. So those sessions you have with your toolbox talks is great to roll it out with that. And those site briefings that you have is good to roll it out with that. But I guess the third, probably what we're thinking around is the legacy of where we're going to make a difference around diversity. Once we have built the railway, once we have infrastructure in place, the things people remember is how much we've changed the sector. Those people who are going to have career that look different to what we had typically at the start of the project, it's going to be great. Those elements of impact on communities, underrepresented groups, who are going to actually now be part of the future workforce is going to be great. So it's the legacy piece for us that's going to be great as part of this.
That's been really great. Big thank you to all the people on our panel. Just want to pick up, just open up the meeting chat and looking through some of the other questions on there. Somebody's asked about that point about when I show that you do the assessment, and having done the assessment, you get a learning plan pops out, and somebody's saying, can you revisit the assessment? You can, but you have to close the action plan to actually revisit the assessment. If you just want to revisit the results of the assessment, obviously they're on your dashboard, and so you can see those in the benchmarks. Or if you'd like to actually download a copy of an Excel spreadsheet of the roadmap in effect against the 5 different subjects, the 15 different topics, there's an Excel spreadsheet on there which has got that all nicely sorted out for you. You can download that from the FIR toolkit. But to redo the assessment, you just need to close the action plan you've got, and that allows you just to go back on and redo it. You can do that as many times as you like. I think the advice people are giving about 2 years for an independent accreditation against it's a good idea, but in terms of an individual business doing it, if you work through and after 3 months you've done the bits for learning, you want some more targeted learning, just work through the tool again, and it'll pop out. Once you've completed maybe 10 resources, you won't get those 10 resources again, you'll get another 10 resources. So you can just keep on feeding that kind of those action plans of continual professional development. So hopefully that's a great way of helping you select. In a way, we see it as kind of our virtual librarian. You know, going into a resource library, wanting the right books which you're going to be interested in reading. This kind of very simple AI actually goes in there and automates that selection of those relevant books, relevant e-learning, relevant videos for you to get those case studies and that knowledge that you actually need. So hopefully that's answered one of the first questions on the chat. How long would you set until we reassess? We've talked about that as well. A few questions about the size of organisation, and I think we covered that off really well early on, saying it works for any size of organisation, and it also works for wherever you sit within the supply chain. So you might well be a professional, you might be a QS firm, for example, or an architects or consulting engineers, and you think, well, and you might not actually work on site. If you don't work on site, that's okay. You're thinking, well, I can't complete the section on site environment. Well, quite simply, you just tick the box which says it's not applicable within those trade sectors. You'll also see that actually actually that for some of you in some trade sectors, we've already done that. We've already filtered it. So we've used some what we call prioritization, where it actually turns off the questions if you're not working on site. It's or that trade never works on site. That's actually turned off the site environment. But even for supply chain, I think all of us have got a supply chain to a greater or lesser extent. My own organisation, small organisation, but we do rely upon a handful of suppliers, and it's important to be able to work with those and talk about these issues through that management process as well. So I think however big your organisation is, you're always working with others where you can help spread the word. And probably the last question, and a couple of questions in there about people saying, how do I get advice on how to update my company profile? Well, you can ask any of the FIR team. So if you email sarah@supplychainschool.co.uk or jenny@supplychainschool.co.uk or myself, we can all help you. We can jump on a Zoom call or something, and you can show us what you're having problems with, and we can help you get you up and running on that anytime at all. So that's no problem. We will also have some very short instructional videos to help you with that. They're already existing within the school about how to update your profiles and all those usual types of things. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of under the frequently asked questions element of Supply Chain School. All those kind of general admin on the school is kind of dealt with. So hopefully that will help. Final thing, a question there. Somebody's asked a question about what evidence do you get after completing the assessment that proves you've completed the assessment? Well, the evidence you get is that you can actually do a print screen of your assessment. So that would be a pretty good assessment with all your scores in there. So you can actually print that as a PDF and then insert that into your bids, which shows it's got the Supply Chain School logo on it. It's got all the branding around. It's got your name on it, so you can print that off. The other thing, obviously, if you go on to, and we're going to move on to this in a moment, if you go on to have the independent third-party verification against it, you'll obviously get a certificate and the like, and we'll talk more about some of the pioneers who've been through that in just a moment's time. But we have no further questions. It just remains to me to be a big thank you to Belinda, Asita and Kevin for a really interesting panel discussion there and getting some kind of advice behind that. I don't know if there's any further comments from Belinda, Asita or Kevin before we move on.
Just really from me in terms of any other suppliers that have any questions in terms of how we do our HS2, what the benefits of a self-assessment is, particularly in respect to FIR. I'm open to answering any questions and I'm available. Just drop me a line.
That's brilliant. Really appreciate that, Tito. Perhaps if you want to just pop your email address in the chat, and people can pick up on that. That'd be lovely. I'm sure our audience, take the time to join us today. We'll really appreciate that. That's really great. Great to be so transparent and so accessible. Thank you very much. So, can we say put your hands together to thank the panel? We can. So you clap away in your bedrooms, your offices, and say what a great job the panel did. So I'll start the clapping. You can all do it. Yeah. So that's really great. Thank you very much. We'll blank your screens now if you want to take your cameras off, and we'll move on to our next panel. So just give me a moment to do that. Thank you again, all. So I will now share my screen very briefly. So I'll just get this correct, and we'll open up. We will have Beth and Kate will be joining us. So I'll just do a little bit of an introduction first of all. So hopefully that's sharing my screen. Yes, it is. Brilliant. Okay, great. I'll just try and move that across there. Cool. Okay, so everything we've talked about to now is how to use the FIR maturity assessment to help your business to grow. So the FIR Growth Assessment helps you to grow. The titles, the clues in the title. It's freely available. It links you to learning resources. If you become a member of the school, it's free at the point of use. The school's paid for by the fabulous donations and partnership fees that we get from the likes of HS2, the likes of the major contractors. We've got about 160 different partners who fund us to make sure that all the learning and all these assessments are completely free of charge at the point of use. One of the things which should come out though during the process of developing the assessment was that a number of our pioneers who went on the program, so it's really and SMEs we took the process to, and also larger contractors and clients were saying that they would also appreciate having some a third-party verification that organisations are where they say they're at with the system as well. So some organisations mandate that, some organisations request it, some organisations recommend it, some don't ask for it at all. But we thought that it would be incumbent upon us to, to be able to offer that up as a service as well. So we've reached out to a couple of organisations that you may or may not be familiar with. I'm sure all of you are familiar with CHAS, the Construction Health and Safety System. Many of you will already go through the CHAS system to get you that kind of third-party health and safety accreditation. And we've been working with their team to enable them to undertake third-party assessments against the FIR assessment. And also with John Rain and his team at CFINGS. And CFINGS have been involved in this agenda for many years. John will talk more about that later. And John's been running some pioneer projects at the moment, working with some organisations who've been through the process. And I'm really pleased to be able to hand on to Beth and Kate in a few moments to actually talk about that. But what does that mean? Just looking at the screen, is a very short diagram. So your choice, we encourage as many of you as possible to do the FIR Growth Assessment. So that's done through the Supply Chain School. It's a self-assessment. The links, as you can see at the top, directly to the FIR toolkit. That's all. It's all there. It's all free at the point of use. You get all that learning. Knock yourself out, do as much learning as you want on that. That's great. We can also support you with the FIR Ambassador Programme, training up people in your organisation to be ambassadors around fairness, inclusion and respect, and continue to support them as they go through building their businesses as well. And more of that after the break. So that's all freely available for you. But if you want to go to the third-party accreditation, which is optional, and you can make your choice whether you want to do that or not. And a couple of questions before about how often should you do that third-party accreditation, and we're thinking about every 2 years is right for that. But it's your decision of whether you want to do it or not, and what are the benefits to you. Hopefully, will come out in a moment. But you can. We've licensed 2 organisations to do that third-party accreditation. Standard costings across that, standard approach, standard a standard set of questions. So there'll be a standard set of levels and questions that you'll get asked, whichever assessor that you decide to go for. So you choose, and you have a third-party relationship with those. It doesn't come through the school. We've just made sure that those assessors are at the right standard. Really important to note is that those assessors are quality assessed by by NOCN, the National Open College Network, which are the largest end party assessor of qualifications within the construction sector. So they know what they're doing, and they're providing a benchmark of quality around those assessment organisations. Those third-party assessments are undertaken based upon the self-assessment you've done. You will share that self-assessment with those third-party assessors, and they'll using Teams and the like. They will go through a series of tests to make sure that you can evidence the levels that you've got to. So we go through that process. That assessment gets quality assured. Get quality assurance feedback to the school to make sure they're developing all the assessors are online and at the standard we want. And then certificates are issued by NOCN and those and your third-party assessor to say you're at that level, and those certificates will last for 2 years. So that fully explains what that third-party assessment process is. But what I'd like to do now is perhaps introduce our 2 pioneers, which is perhaps a much nicer phrase than the phrase guinea pig I used earlier. So apologies to that to Kate and Beth. But you're our pioneers. You've gone through the process with CFINGS. As you can see there, Kate is the social value manager at Danny Sullivan Group. For those of you who are not aware, Danny Sullivan Group is one of the large labour suppliers within the infrastructure sector and construction sector, employ hundreds, if not thousands, of people and provide those on contract into tier 1 contractors and the like. And so Kate will give it a perspective from a larger employer. And then I'll hand over to Beth, and Beth will talk about from a kind of SME perspective, partnering in property management, different sector, different size of organisation. I think we've probably all found from our last panel, it's really useful to have larger companies and smaller companies on our panel, so we can actually look at that. So what I'll do first of all, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll hand over to Kate, if I may. Kate, if you could perhaps talk about your journey, because I know that before the FIR growth assessment, you were actually accredited using BFAIR, weren't you? So, Kate, if I may ask you just to take the floor.
Thank you so much, Ian. I did actually submit some slides, so I understand that they might be showing, but I can carry on maybe whilst they're being identified. Thank you for inviting me to take part in this and represent Danny Sullivan Group. I am, as you said, Ian, Social Value Manager at Danny Sullivan Group, and we provide, for those who want some context, we're a leading subcontractor of labour provision, predominantly blue collar roles across civils, infrastructure, aviation, rail, roads. Working with sort of large clients that are delivering on the likes of HS2, and we have around 1,800 members of staff across the UK, both on site and in HQ, and sort of seen huge amounts of growth over the last few years, which is fantastic. As Ian said, in context, DSG, Danny Sullivan Group, DSG, was the first labour subcontractor to be awarded the BFAIR accreditation back in 2019, and very much served as a launch pad for the business to be able to then continue and develop and lead on sort of FIR programmes, both as a business, but also across the sector, and we're really proud to have been recognised for that award back in the day. This recent assessment was essential, really, to be able to review where we've got to. There was a lot of talk about the fact that this is a continual journey, and the assessment through the Supply Chain Sustainability School really was useful to benchmark and identify where we were at, what we've managed to continue to sort of develop in terms of our programmes after the BFAIR assessment a few years ago, but also strive then for this new assessment level, and we wanted to get to the embedded level, which there are a number of different sort of rungs that you can go for. So it really for us was essential to be able to, like I said, give insight to where we were at, but also where we needed to improve. And we decided to also work with John at See Things as a third-party assessor, really to help give that benchmark of quality, really, and to ensure that we do what we say on the tin, and that actually has some gravitas and some impact as a result. We recognise as a business that FIR activities isn't just the right thing to do because of our sort of social value contractual requirements, but it really is vital as a business where our offering is people, that we continue to attract people to our business, that we continue to engage with them, and that we can retain a very diverse workforce. And certainly one of the main benefits of the BFAIR accreditation, and more recently the revised assessment, is that it has helped DSG to formalise a lot of the FIR activity that was perhaps going on in a more informal and organic way. It's really helped us to see the full extent of our commitment and showcase this both to our workforce and to our clients. So some of the key things that we've sort of developed since achieving that BFAIR accreditation back in 2019 and through this new revised programme is that we have now aligned our FIR activity into DSG's wider workforce strategy. So which in turn, it means that it is absolutely supported from senior management and gives it much more sort of a limelight and sort of shines, the focus on this activity. And what the assessment process has now allowed us to do is to ensure that we're joined up. This isn't just playing lip service to the topic of FIR or EDI. It's actually truly integrated into all parts of the business. And we worked through the assessment matrix to help embed FIR practices across the business, so that, like I said, it isn't a standalone or a bolt-on, but something that is practiced, endorsed and enforced across the business, and further still in collaboration with our clients. We found that the matrix modules that the embedded level asked us to look to are incredibly helpful. The 4 modules that were referenced before in terms of demonstrating our commitment, in demonstrating how we attract, recruit and retain a diverse workforce through the employment module, our working practices through our policies and procedures, and that last piece around site environment really gave some structure and served as a template to review current activity, but also how we're going to take that forward. I started at Danny Sullivan Group sort of last year, so it was fascinating to sort of pull that together and look at it with sort of newer eyes and really understand just how much progress we've made as a business. And I'm really proud of the business and where we're at with this. You know, some of the activity that we do, it really, well, all of it really is about engaging and educating, empowering our workforce, continuing to revise our FIR policies, so they're not just a piece of paper, but actually integrating that across the activities that we do through EDI training that we now offer, actually working with the Supply Chain Sustainability School with a bespoke learning pathway. That is something that we ask all our employees to complete, to familiarise themselves, to feed back on. It's a piece of education. It's vital for everybody to understand what EDI and FIR is. It can't just be, you know, a label, but also it's something that also our clients are now asking us to undertake across the board as well. So that really joined up approach is fantastic to see. Our policies are also sort of communicated through other activities, our mental health champion programme, for example, which is delivered on site by our health and safety teams, but also by our FIR ambassadors. And I know we've got Rory here, who is an absolute incredibly knowledgeable in this area, and that's delivered through toolbox talks and on our online learning platforms, so that, you know, that we can really filter this through. We want to empower our workforce to speak out. We want them to support one another, and we recognise that feedback and communication is essential to this. Further still, the assessment made us look at our qualitative data, you know, looking at our workforce demographics, identifying where we don't have the diversity that we need to be able to sort of represent the communities in which we're working. And that, for me, and this is why I think this assessment is very clever, then actually helps me with my day job in terms of informing the thinking of how we then create inclusive employability programs. It forces you to review, it forces you to analyse, and actually it then helps with my job to look at how we can partner with the right organisations to attract more women, to have that ethnic diversity, to make it accessible for perhaps people who are disabled, and working with communities that there might be sort of low employment levels, and sort of identifying how we can integrate that across our workforce. So, you know, the assessment really has strengthened our journey to constantly evolve, constantly improve, and drive that change forward. And I'd just like to say, in terms of just to finalise in some of the activities that we've done, you know, the last few years have been absolutely bonkers for everybody, particularly with COVID, and fundamental to sort of keeping that communication going with our workforce has been our FIR practices. That two-way communication through surveys, through feedback, whether it be anonymous or not, has really helped, I believe, us understand our workforce and support them through, you know, quite turbulent times. And really proud to say that we've retained, you know, our workforce, and we have a happy workforce, and people have worked with us for a long time. And that is evidence to me that you know, that we do listen and we are proactive in this space. So certainly, it's sort of being new to the business, but also seeing the incredible work that sort of Danny Sullivan Group has done, I would endorse the assessment, and you know, whether that be with a third-party accreditor. For me and for us, it really has been great to work with See Things to help regroup, to understand where we are, to see where we want to go, and really the assessment to me is the launch pad to take this forward for the next 2 to 3 years and ensure that we're constantly evolving, because there's always room for improvement, isn't there? So, you know, it's been a really positive experience, and certainly a real education, which is vital for any business's success. Thank you.
A bit about where you've talked about FIR being a part of the wider workforce strategy. You know, it's not something which just happens in a kind of cupboard somewhere. It's something which is like, you know, you can't be working in silos. It's got to be actually running through that whole workforce strategy, hasn't it? Which is really great. So great to get your perspective. I'm going to invite Beth now. Beth Nichols from Partnering in Property to give that the SME example of this, and you've gone through a similar process as well. I think we've got one slide for you to talk to as well, Beth. So over to you, Beth.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Communications and Development Manager at PPM Limited. We're a property maintenance provider, very much small business, and we've got 100 employees altogether. We have 5 sites, 4 of which are in Cumbria and 1 in West Yorkshire. So we provide property maintenance to local housing associations and predominantly, and we also do a lot of work with the local and district councils doing disabled adaptation works. So we are very much a smaller organisation looking after about 10,000 properties in the northwest and Yorkshire. Our directors were always aware of equality and diversity. It was very much on the agenda, but we became more involved when a key client, Home Group, introduced and promoted the initiative of FIR back in 2016, and explained what the FIR programme was. This went kind of to a next stage really when we went for a new contract with Home Group to cover their repairs and maintenance in the South Lakes area, and they actually specified it as a contract condition within that contract. So we had to become a FIR accredited business within 18 months of winning that contract, and that's actually when we became introduced to See Things as a licensed provider for FIR. It was very much provided a structured approach to what we were doing, and introduced also new ways of working and improving on what we were doing already, to help our employees feel valued and supported really. We had initial training. I think very much, Kate said, we had buy-in from our senior management team and directors, with some initial training to understand our responsibilities, and get their full buy-in and commitment to the FIR process. And then we put this down to throughout our depots to our employees as our operatives, through the ed training. During this time when we were doing all this, we were also communicating out to internally to our teams, and also externally, so our clients knew what we were doing on this journey, as well as Home Group, our other clients, and subcontractors and supply chain. So we were building up that communication there. Gathering our evidence was quite a timely thing to do, but we found that we did have a lot of it in place already. It was just building on what we were doing there and evidencing that, to give to our external assessor, Jill Brown. And then we had actual interviews with our team. So it was from a range of our team, including our directors, supervisors and operatives on the ground there. And we completed that assessment in November 2018, and becoming an official FIR accredited business in April 2019. That's when See Things actually introduced us to the supply chain sustainability school with the FIR ambassador training, which I undertook. Which really, it was amazing. We found so many benefits to having the access to all the amazing training resources and webinars, to improve my knowledge on it, and also we could filter that down into the teams as well, using the amazing toolbox talks, and training for our senior team as well really. Sorry. And then we had our we tended to, when we got the actual main evaluation from our assessor, we found that really beneficial in terms of it was extremely thorough in terms of what they'd found from speaking to our team, but also gave us points to go forward and improve what we were doing. And we could use the supply chain school resources to be able to do this really, and we do this annually. We've done this annually since taking our assessment, to evaluate our progress, to commit to that continuous improvement and reset our actions and recommendations for the next 12 months, which we found really beneficial. And then, of course, we were delighted to hear that See Things then advised us that the school were taken over with the new FIR Growth Assessment. It was fantastic because we had the benefits of using the site already, and the assessment tool was a really fantastic way of seeing how far we've come since starting our FIR journey, but also where we can go to moving up throughout the levels as well. One of the top tips I would give in terms of doing that FIR assessment, I think Kevin said this before, it's being very honest and knowing where you're starting from. Luckily, we had a lot of the evidence compiled, and we could put also in the good practices that we've found from doing our continuous improvement throughout the years, which has been really beneficial to us. But knowing where to start from, we submitted our evidence to our external assessor Jill. We've actually completed our interviews with the team again. This was done by teams completely different in terms of post-COVID or in COVID, and we're now waiting to receive our official feedback from the school and the assessor's report, so we can then again develop and implement these actions and look to go from good practice up to the strategic level in 2024. And it's brilliant having that criteria to know where we can move to, and having all those fantastic tools on the site, the school site, to be able to help us do that. It is really, really beneficial to us.
Thanks very much. That's really great. So if I could perhaps, if we could stop sharing the slide on the screen, and we'll invite also along John Rain, who's director at See Things, whose colleagues have been doing those assessments for the two case studies, two pioneers we've just heard about. But also I'd like to invite Alex Manette, who's head of products and markets at CHAS, Construction Health and Safety Organisation. You'll be all pretty familiar with them. Alex's role, he sits on the executive leadership team. He's a director in of SIP as well, SSIP, and he's got many years of experience within the construction industry, which I think will be very useful here. One of the things that appealed to us about CHAS was the fact that I think it's 30,000 organisations get their health and safety assessments for the construction sector done through CHAS. So obviously they've got an outreach, and one of the things we want to do with the third programme, we want that outreach. One of the great things that appealed about John, and hopefully John and Alex can turn their cameras on now and join the panel. So I don't think you could, brilliant. As I said, it happened. So welcome, Alex. Yeah, that's great. Hi. And John will be joining as well. But one of the great things about John is his organisation's been involved in this whole agenda for many years. CHAS, large organisation, again, See Things, a much smaller organisation, but a real specialist in this area as well. And we've heard some of the benefits of using an organisation with that specialist knowledge to provide that. So I've got a few questions coming in, which is always great, but also I've got some questions for you all to kind of kick off with as well. And first of all, a big thank you to both case studies. Really, really interesting. Just Beth, in terms of time, how much of your time did you think it took for yourselves as a small organisation to go through the third-party accreditation process?
Initially, it was quite high volume of time putting into it, just collating all that information and evidence. But now that it's in place, it's just being able to maintain that as going forward, and looking at that continuous improvement on how we improve on what we're doing, really. But I think the time taken to do it is directly proportionate to getting that assessment and being able to show the effort that we've put into improving what we're doing in the business there. It is a long-term commitment. It's not a quick fix by any means, but the toughest bit was getting all the training, to be honest, throughout all of our team and coordinating that, really, I think.
I'm kind of nodding my head with that, because I remember my own organisation when we did Invested in People many years ago, or we did like ISO. The first time you do it, it's kind of you probably haven't formalized some of your processes, and you probably haven't have a nice place that you've put them all in some nice directory somewhere. Yeah, and it just takes time to get that. And I can see Kate smiling away there. Is it a similar experience, Kate?
Absolutely, and I think what's been so great about this process is it makes you realise how much you are doing. It's a really rewarding process because there's no wrong answer. So, and actually, I think most businesses will be probably doing more than they think, and so it has been a great opportunity to just like I said, sort of to get that platform of where you are now and take the wins and understand the achievements, and then look forward, as Beth said, in terms of that growth plan.
Yeah, thanks for that. John, just picking up on that point there, because I think quite often when we get the third-party organisations coming in, whether it's our financial auditors or the IAP people or the ISO people, we always think there is a wrong answer, but at that point there isn't a wrong answer, is there? So just picking up on that point, John, what's your view on that?
There isn't a wrong answer, no, and it's really gratifying to hear a number of times that people have said that it isn't a test. What we're trying to do is understand where you are, where you need to be, and what we can do, put in place to help you to get from A to B. The answers, again, it depends on resource. I've got a long list here, but a lot of the questions have already been answered. You know, you've got something here now, I hope, that's trusted by the client. That's key, that's critical. And the external assessment process, the bit that ourselves and Chaz are doing, it does involve face-to-face interviews, or virtual now, I should say. And I would say it was Kevin that said, certainly don't be daunted by that process, because it isn't a test where nobody's going to be asking you questions about stereotyping and discrimination. We would expect the client to have some knowledge, site operatives certainly, but it's more about, well, if this situation arose, what would you do about it? Where would you go? Who would you talk to? And at the same time, ask a similar question of somebody further up the line, if you like, further up the hierarchy, that if somebody came to you with a problem, how would you respond? You know, it really is about the people. And it's a very similar process. If people are familiar with Chaz and ISO and investors in people, then it's nothing to be daunted about at all. And I would say start now, and if in doubt, ask, you know, seek support and be guided, because it will be alien to a lot of people. But if there's members there that are tuning in now, and FIR ambassadors that are already there, you've already started, you know, and take the next step. That's what I'd encourage.
Thanks, John. That's really useful. I'll come over to Alex, if I may, as well. Alex, obviously, Chaz, as an organisation, you do literally thousands of third-party assessments around health and safety every year. I think probably tens of thousands in actual fact, don't you? Interested in why you think that EDI as an organisation and FIR is an important area, you know, a new area for you. What's motivating you as an organisation to get behind this?
No, I appreciate that. Thanks, Ian. I think from our point of view, you know, Chaz are extremely proud and excited to be working with the school on this. Obviously, John with See Things has been involved through the various iterations, getting to where we are today. But from our point of view at Chaz, it's the right thing to do. It's great to see that businesses want to invest in their teams, want to invest in their people, and I think that's one of the most important things. And I think from our point of view, again, it's a great way to change the way that assessments are undertaken. Various people have talked about it today, that there's no wrong answer with this one. For those members that have been through the Chaz assessment before, you've got to submit your evidence, and there is a right or a wrong. Whereas with this, it's a journey, it's a collaborative approach. So it's seeing where your business is at this this moment in time, where you want to be on that journey, and then working with you to take you on that journey. And I think where this can benefit everyone is, again, Kate, you mentioned it yourself, that very often businesses, if they're doing a self-assessment, they might put themselves down and not realise that actually they are doing a lot, and there are a lot of positive things that they do within the business, and maybe they don't think that that's enough. But working with companies like See Things or with us, it's for our auditors to go out, understand what you do as a business, understand how you support your workers, how you bring your workers on, how you take them through the training, and ultimately then there's little bits of information that we can pick up through that process, and potentially you're actually doing better than you think you already are.
Thanks, Alex. So probably just finish this panel off just by asking each of the panel members to give us one tip, top tip to an organisation thinking about going through this process. Kate, can I start with yourself? Sorry, top tip to another organisation thinking about it.
I'm gonna be greedy and just have two, if that's all right.
Hey, brilliant, love it. Alex is thinking, oh, I don't have to give one now.
That's fine.
The first is about record keeping. Keep a track on it. That will save a lot of time in terms of sort of that evidence piece that Beth mentioned, in terms of that physical evidence you have to put. And the second is about communication across the business. Make sure everybody knows what you're getting up to, and be proud of it. So those would be my two top tips.
I think they're good ones. I think if you're going to drive changes in your organisation, which fundamentally this is about a change management process, isn't it? We're looking to change culture. It doesn't happen overnight, and you need process to do that. You can have leadership and some great ideas, and the big boss can stand up and say how important this is, etc., etc. But actually, you need a process in your business which underlies it, doesn't it? Yeah, that can be a very simple process for a business, but the other thing, as well as the process, you need to be able to communicate right through your business as well. And those processes and that communication needs to be continual if you're going to drive that change. We've all been involved in change in organisations we've worked in, I'm sure, which has kind of started, stuttered, and not happened because great ideas, and it just all kind of dies a slow death because there's just not that kind of process behind it. There's not that communication behind it. It doesn't kind of, I always say it needs to like break it in half like a stick of rock, and it should be running through all the middle of it, like all the way through. You should be able to see that. So really two good points there. Greedy but good points, Kate. Brilliant. Beth, are you going to be greedy or no?
Well, kind of going on from what Kate was saying, I think it's been very much, we found it so beneficial to have such a buy-in from the directors and also the senior management team, but also our managers within our depots as well, because they're getting it out as well as us, and they're kind of our FIR ambassadors, to coin the phrase. Sorry, not actual FIR ambassadors, we are working towards that, but they're our ambassadors in those depots. So I think having that buy-in from all of them and them understanding it has been really, really helpful, and would help other people. And just having See Things as well has been incredible. They've been such a support for us through the whole journey from back in 2017 when we met, so that they have been instrumental in helping us get through this process.
Beth, that's a really interesting point about leadership there, in actual fact, that you can have leaders at any level of your business. You can have, we tend to think of leaders being the directors in an organisation, but no, when it comes to something like FIR, you can have leaders at any level. You can have, a site manager, you can have a supervisor, you can have somebody, who works on the trucks or whatever it might be, the delivery trucks. A leader is somebody that other people in the business will follow through their, through their leadership traits. For me, that's what leadership's about. You can be a leader or a FIR ambassador at any level in the organisation. So, getting across that point, this can be, it's good to be top down, but it's great to be bottom up as well. And getting people through the organisation leading is really important. John, top tip from yourself.
Well, it's not a top tip really, because I think we've heard some great top tips, but as Kate and Beth mentioned there, they're undergoing this migration process now from Be Fair as was to the new FIR Growth Assessment, and it has been great. It's been a learning curve for us all. But what we're finding as the external assessors, if you like, we're actually seeing proof of the pudding. You know, we first met with Beth and Danny Sullivan Group at least 3 years ago, and now we're going back 3 years later. We, as independent verifiers, if you like, can now see change. We're metrics, we're seeing difference. You know, we interview people virtually, and we're making a point of doing our best to interview people. It's a bit of a strong word, interview, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Interviewing people from 3 years ago, and it's great. You know, they can tell us what, you know, how the business has changed, what they're seeing, how communication's improved. That's what's been really marvelous for us. We've been able to really witness measured change and attitude within the businesses, and that's replicated throughout. That doesn't matter who we go to. We're just with Danny Sullivan and PPM at the moment. So that's the observation, is that it's change in action, and what we need to do, of course, is multiply it manyfold. That's what we want to try and do over the coming period. You know, strengthen numbers.
John, you've hit the nail on the head. You know, we're about, you know, education, we're about understanding where we're at on that journey, but actually it's all about the destination at the end of the journey. It's about that continual improvement. It's about having that impact, isn't it? It's about making a better industry for all. Absolutely. Alex, final word to yourself. Top tip.
I was going to say I was almost going to steal John's route there and take it more as a note. But no, you're absolutely right. To me, it's about making sure that companies can demonstrate where they are. It's been mentioned a few times today about the evidence that you'll have at the end of this, and I don't think it is just that badge. It's about understanding where you are as a business now, where you want to be a better business, and by working with a third party on this, you've got that partnership collaborative approach, and we can help you through the process, be with you on that journey, and ultimately then a lot of businesses do like that certificate, so they will have a certificate, and year on year as they improve, that certificate will move up levels as well, and they can be proud of their achievement and show that to their clients, and hopefully then that will increase business for them as well. So I think it's just that collaborative approach, really.
Thank you all. Well, thank you to Kate, thank you to Beth, thank you to John and Alex as well. As I said before, let's kind of in the virtual world all put our hands together, clap away in our bedrooms and our front rooms and our kitchen tables, and say a big thank you for coming and sharing your experiences. I think I got a lot out of that panel, which is really great. So thank you for that. We're going to take a very quick break now. So could I ask that we're all back here at 11:20, and at 11:20 we're then going to be looking at we've been talking about the FIR ambassadors quite a lot this morning, and Beth was mentioning about ambassadors within her own business. But if we could be back here at 11:20, that'd be great, because I want to show you the development of functionality in the school about how to get from being an ambassador to being a bronze, silver and gold ambassador, and what we've got in place to help you track that and track your colleagues within your organisation. So quick 10-minute break, and then look forward to seeing you all back on the screen in 10 minutes time at 11:20. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, or still good morning. Well, ahead of myself, what can I say? Feels like the afternoon, we've had a break. We'll be starting in 2 minutes time, so if you just want to collect your cups of tea and what have you, and we will be starting in 2 minutes time. Thank you. Hi, Christina. Hi, Bryony.
Hi.
Christina's on message. Look at that with the banner and everything. You're on mute though. I'm afraid, Christina.
I was just saying, well, I'm an ambassador. What do you expect?
Brilliant. Thank you.
I've had this banner for 5 years now, so I use it all the time.
Brilliant. So what I'll do in terms of this, I'll obviously with Bryony first of all, then be over to Sarah, and then I'll get the Bryony. You'll be asking the questions, won't you, on the panel?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Lovely.
Just hoping that nobody comes to my door because the dog's in my room. And my husband's out, so she will insist on staying with me. So, nice interlude.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm back again, but I'll be handing the baton over to my colleague Bryony Wickington from Seeker, who's our kind of champion on our FIR leadership group. Absolutely superb engagement with Bryony. We've worked as partners with Seeker for many years on this programme. Been absolutely superb. So it's great that Bryony can join us today and to give you an update on where we are in terms of engaging and developing FIR ambassadors. It's something we want to do for a significant amount of time, and I'm really great that we're going to be joined as well by Christina Riley, who's a senior planner at Quinn London, and Rory Coffey at Danny Sullivan Group. These are people who've been ambassadors from a number of years and really embody what it's like, what it means to be an ambassador. So it'd be great to get their experience. So without further ado, I will pass over to Bryony. Bryony, welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Ian. Yes, I've been involved in the programme for, well, since its inception, really, and even before that, because I was involved in an industry working group that the CITB set up 8 or 9 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago even, when we first reviewed and approved the FIR framework. So it's great to see that this has now moved on and evolved. And Ian and I have put an awful lot of time and effort into making sure that it is up to date. And thanks to Belinda and her team for starting us on the journey, to be fair. So without further ado, I'm here to talk to you about why you should have FIR ambassadors if you haven't already got them, what we do, what their role is and all the rest of it. And then Sarah's going to take us through the journey. The idea of FIR ambassadors came up when we were about 2 years into the initial FIR programme. Initially, we were funded by CITB exclusively, and we had 2 1-year pieces of money. So we weren't really able to develop in the way that we really wanted to. But one of the things that it became apparent was the enthusiasm of everybody within the industry to get involved. And many of the people that attended our first programmes were really keen to find out what they could do within their own business. So therefore, we started looking at what we could do, and we developed a FIR ambassador programme. Initially, we started with a specific face-to-face program for them, and we set up a network. The network was great. It was the opportunity for people to discuss and develop each other. And I know that Christina was certainly involved, and I think Rory was too, right in those initial stages. And I'm sure they'll share that with you when they join in. But why should you have a FIR ambassador if you haven't already got one? Well, their role is to look internally, to help businesses internally, and to promote the FIR programme within their own business. If they have external means of doing so, then again, that's part and parcel of their role. So what we expect of them really is not to be the person that everyone goes to if they've got a problem, but to help and advise and to move the business on. A little bit like the growth assessment, looking at businesses, the FIR ambassadors will look at what the processes and behaviours are within the business and help move the business on to some extent. Their primary role, I think, though, is to promote all that's good about the FIR programme. They need to share the learning that's there, encourage people to participate, because the more people we have participating in the FIR programme, the stronger and the better it becomes. They are not there to sort out individual problems. They are not there to necessarily go to management on somebody else's behalf and sort out a problem. But if there is a general issue right across the board, that is when they would step in. But their role is fluid and it differs from organisation to organisation, and what each organisation does with their FIR ambassadors, how they help develop them, how they look after them, is really down to an individual company. I know there are many companies that have networks, large companies obviously, networks of FIR ambassadors, and they join together and work together to see what they can do. But if you're a small business, a FIR ambassador is just as important, because they can help you identify where there is need for development or change. They start off, the initial part of the journey is very, very simple. Having attended one of the initial courses, the first course, the business case for fairness, inclusion and respect, they move on to a FIR ambassadors program. And if they like what they hear, then one hopes that they will become an ambassador, sign up to be an ambassador. What do they have to do in order to become an ambassador? They should have an internal company sponsor who is in a management role, who will help and support them to influence change if that's what's needed within the business. And that is really, really key, because a FIR ambassador shouldn't be left on their own. It's not a role that anyone can do in total isolation. They need backing from within the business. They need others to understand what it's all about, and they need a sounding board from time to time. So that's a really important part of becoming an ambassador. We've now developed a programme which is FIR Ambassadors The Next Steps, and that is aimed at helping ambassadors see how they can bring about, how they can maximise the benefit of having a FIR ambassador in a business, what their role should be, how it should be. It gives them pointers, it gives them the opportunity to discuss with others what they've done, share good ideas, etc. And we initially set up a LinkedIn page specifically for ambassadors. It's intended as a discussion board. It is used. The supply chain school often puts on posts. I add posts to it, and some individual ambassadors add posts to it. But again, it's all about sharing knowledge. What value do the ambassadors bring to the company? Well, it will help a business demonstrate their commitment to fairness, inclusion, and respect. It will help improve workplace culture. And in doing so, one hopes that we will help businesses to become an employer of choice. The ambassadors can share FIR knowledge. They can understand the resources and point people in the right direction if they want any additional help. And really, it's why do we have the FIR programme? Well, yes, it's the right thing to do. Yes, we have skills gaps. Yes, we want the industry to look as good as it possibly can. But the real bottom line is that actually it makes good business sense. And to have a FIR ambassador on your side also makes good business sense. So that's really what it's all about. Having developed the programme, we then started to think about what was the FIR ambassadors, what more could we do to support the FIR ambassadors. And a few years back, and I must admit it is a few years back, we did start to discuss having a FIR ambassadors journey. I'm pleased to say that it is now actually live. We've been working on it, as I say, for quite some time, but also at the same time as doing the growth assessment. So it has taken us longer than we had hoped. You can see the infographic up there, what it is, how it works. It may well be that a FIR ambassador stays at FIR ambassador status, that is sufficient. But in order to do so, they have to complete the FIR survey that we carry out every year. That's a requirement. The reason it's a requirement is so that we can understand what is going on in businesses. And that's where the FIR ambassadors are, the FIR programme's eyes and ears out at the coal face or on the site or in the office or wherever. So it's a really important piece of work for us is the annual FIR survey, and that's why it's a requirement for FIR ambassadors to maintain their status is to complete the FIR survey, which is current at the moment, and I'm sure we can put the link to that in the chat so that you can all go away and do it, because it really is a very important piece of work for us. So the FIR ambassadors journey we started looking at, as I say, a couple of years ago. We wanted to encourage FIR ambassadors to develop their knowledge so that they can be even more supportive within the businesses. And we looked at the best way of doing it. We started off by thinking, well, is it just a time-based? Thank you, Sarah. Is it just a time-based programme? But then we thought, no, we need to have a bit more. We need a little bit more evidence about what is going on, what they're learning, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help to the FIR ambassadors to help them understand the wider issues of fairness, inclusion and respect. So we've put together this programme, this journey, which as I say, you can see on the screen now. It is a 3-year programme, but it is a question of working through it. Some of the existing ambassadors, such as both Christina and Rory, I'm sure are already golds. I am, of course, a gold because it was me that started the whole thing in the first place, so I have to be a gold. But I do spend an awful lot of time, although I'm the head of training and development for Seeker, the vast majority of my time at the moment is spent on the FIR programme. So my commitments exceed the gold. So I'm thinking actually I ought to make myself into a platinum. Who knows? Who knows? I might just push that. However, that's what it's all about. I'm now going to ask Christina and No, I'm not. I'm going to ask Sarah if she will demonstrate the ambassador's journey, and I hope you'll take note. And if you've got any questions, as I'm sure you will, please put them in the chat and we'll pick them up as we go along. Thanks very much. Over to you, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. So I've prepared a short demo. I've recorded this yesterday, actually, just testing everything, and it's looking very good. So I'll just get that up now. Ian has that to hand, and we'll share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Just give me a moment whilst I press the right buttons, as always. So I'll go to share my screen, and it should all pop up nicely in a moment. So here we go. Hopefully you're seeing my screen, but the wrong thing on my screen. I'll get there eventually. It was there. Yeah, there we go. That's the right thing. Okay, I'll press the launch button and here we go.
A quick demonstration of how you can get started on your ambassador journey. If you're already on that journey, I will also show you how you can progress from bronze, silver to gold. So to get started, you simply need to log into your school account, and on the left-hand side, you will have access to the ambassador journey tile. Once you click view journeys, it will take you onto the FIR Ambassador Journey landing page, where you'll be able to find out a little bit more about what it means to be a FIR Ambassador. If you're getting started, just download this flyer. And then also, if you want to find out a little bit more about what the different levels entail, we've got that broken down here for you. So beginner, you would need to complete an ambassador pre-training pathway. This consists of free videos and then also completing an e-learning module. You will then need to attend a Becoming a FIR Ambassador workshop. And once you've attended that workshop, you will then need to complete your commitment, which I will show you in just a minute. So we've also broken down the steps you need to take if you want to achieve bronze, if you're at a beginner level, the criteria that you need to meet, along with silver and also gold. We've also got this available in an infographic for you. So back to if you're just getting started, what you'll need to do is head over to the FIR Ambassador pre-training pathway. You can then enroll for that pathway, so this gets you started. Once you've enrolled, you'll just need to head over to your dashboard to gain full access to enrolled pathways. Once you do that, you'll be able to access the FIR Ambassador pre-training pathway, view pathway, and in the drop-down menu, you will see the 3 different videos that you need to complete along with the e-learning module. Once you've completed those, on the right-hand side, you will see a green checkbox. So once you've completed your pre-training pathway, you're ready to sit the Becoming a FIR Ambassador course. You'll just need to keep an eye out on our training workshops coming up and enroll yourself onto a workshop also. The workshop is 3.5 hours in length, and it will be followed up by a FIR commitment form. So if you want to commit to being a FIR Ambassador, you will need to sign the form. So I'll just show you how to do that. So you'll need to check off and read off that you agree with the statements provided. Once you do that, you're ready to sign your commitment. Just fill in your details, your first name, last name, your email address, and the date of the ambassador workshop you attended. You'll then need to provide the full name of your sponsor to Becoming a FIR Ambassador, and also your company name and your sponsor's email address. Once you've completed that, you will receive this notification and you're ready to exit your form. This will then warrant your new FIR Ambassador badge. It will also reflect on your certificates and you will then have the badge of recognition. If you're already on the journey, you will have access to the different levels available on the screen. So you should be able to log in and understand what level you're at, and then also understand how you can progress to the next level. Simply head over to the Ambassador Journey page and review the level you're at and understand the steps that you need to take to get on to the next level. So there will always be accompanying activities to do so. In the next few months, we will also have a progress bar available right here, and it will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get to that next level as well. If you have any questions, feel free to contact one of the FIR team. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Right. I think we're all zipping in and out all over the place. It's now my pleasure to introduce Christina and Rory. I think Christina and Rory, you can both introduce yourselves and explain how you got to where you've got to today and what your interest was. So if we can kick off with that to start off with, that would be great. And then I've got some questions that we will run through. I haven't seen any questions coming up as yet. Yep, it is coming up. No, there are no questions coming through. So Christina, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, no, thanks, Bryony. Hi, Rory. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, I'm Christina Riley. I'm a senior planner for Quinn London, as Ian introduced me. I've been in the construction industry now for, it's getting on nearly 30 years, which is quite frightening, really, how time has gone by. And I suppose over that time, I've seen sort of culture change within the industry. Really, you know, it has progressed significantly, and I know we're going to probably talk about that in a bit later. So what I do in my sort of day-to-day job is planning. So I work out on construction sites. I plan projects in terms of their sequencing. I produce Gantt charts, and I work with the entire site team. So I work with project managers, I work with design teams, clients, pretty much everybody within the business. So my job role is quite forward facing, and I get to meet people from all backgrounds, all levels of their careers, working with senior leadership, but also grassroots operatives as well. So I get quite a lot of exposure to the whole industry, really. Rory?
Thanks, Christina. Morning, everyone. So yeah, my name's Rory Coffey. I'm the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Manager for Danny Sullivan Group. And as Kate explained, we are a labour supplier to a lot of the major tier 1 contractors kind of all over the UK, really. Hence why, if you can see pillows in the corner, I'm currently coming live from a travel lodge in Scotland. So I've been with Danny Sullivan Group for about 7 years, and I actually started my career as a labourer and a ground worker on site, and I eventually came into a role as a health and safety assistant and kind of up to my current role. And kind of similar to Christina, I've been in my role since as a FIR ambassador since around 2017, 2018, and yeah, a big part of it really for me is getting to go out, as we are a labour supplier, going out and engaging with a lot of different companies, as well as our own workforce and a lot of the different supply chain, whether that's kind of in management meetings or actually getting out on site and getting to kind of do some training and some conversations around this. So again, very varied, and it's a great opportunity to kind of share the FIR message.
Lovely, thank you both. And I know that they are both exceedingly good examples of FIR ambassadors, and I know that we've got others on the call today who are also as proactive as Christina and Rory. And I think I'd like to express my thanks to those that have joined and become FIR ambassadors, because really it does help the FIR programme move along, as I said earlier. But a few questions for you both. How how do you operate as a FIR ambassador within your organisation? What sort of activities do you get involved in, and why? I suppose that's the simple question. So, Rory, I'll start with you first, because I started with Christina first last time, and I never normally do things in alphabetical order just because my surname is Wickenden. So, Rory, if you can kick off with that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so my activities, to be honest, with my role as a FIR ambassador, they're like incredibly varied in Danny Sullivan Group, but it's actually been a really positive part for my actual career since becoming a FIR ambassador, is the exposure that has given me. So I'm involved with things like this assessment now, and even sitting in our board meetings where we have kind of FIR as a topic on the agenda every single time, and leading things at a strategic level, to actually going down to all the sites we're on across the UK, and whether that's doing toolbox talks, having discussions and meetings with our ambassadors, or I think I run the introduction to FIR sessions, and I've done those on site to kind of over 400 people now, of not just Danny Sullivan employees, but also kind of the wider supply chain. So I get to kind of do everything from the one-to-one site conversations to the senior level strategy and looking at how we implement it. So it's been really good kind of to broaden my career and my insights as well, as much as anything.
So can I just ask a supplementary question to that? So would you describe yourself as the lead ambassador within Danny Sullivan, and how many do you have within Danny Sullivan?
I wouldn't say I'm probably the lead. I'm probably one of the ones that focuses on sites, given the nature of my role, that I would be on site kind of a lot along with our operations team, so they're all ambassadors as well. But I look after a lot of the kind of training and creating the training plans and different things like that for our supervisors. So I always try and get them engaged in all of this. In terms of exact numbers, to be perfectly honest, Kate's been doing a lot of work at that at the moment. So off the top of my head, I wouldn't be positive. I don't know if Kate would know, or she's still there, but not off the top of my head, I don't know. But we have a good few across the country and across the sites that we kind of get to meet up with. And then we have a lot of people who haven't managed, as we said, to go through the full ambassador journey yet, that are also our site champions. And it kind of touches on something Ian said as well before, where even if we haven't managed to get them through the ambassador journey yet, even though that is part of our strategy over the next few years, I think, to get offered out to at least 90% of our workforce the opportunity to do that, whether that's site or office based, is that we have a lot of champions and a lot of people who've done the introduction sessions, and they don't have to be managers or supervisors, but they really do take a lead and they take a grasp on it. And it's really just trying to encourage that culture as well, is a big part of it for me.
Thank you. That's really important, actually, and I did forget to mention it. It is possible for anybody in any role within any business in construction to become a FIR ambassador. There is no requirement for them to be a supervisor or a leader or a manager. You know, it is open to anybody who has an interest, provided, as I said, they have the backing of a senior manager within their business. So sorry, Christina, I've cut into your time.
It's okay.
Would you like to share with us what you do? I know you've changed roles several times, so you've probably got insight into various different businesses during your time as a FIR ambassador. So if you'd like to share with us possibly the differences between those organisations that you have been with and how it's sort of operated, that would be really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a FIR ambassador so at least 5 or 6 years now. So I'm losing track. It seems to be forever.
2017 we launched them. So
right.
Yes.
So which is about the same time as at that time I was chair of the Balfour Beatty LGBT network. So that was the beginning of my journey in terms of inclusion within the construction industry, even though at the time I'd been in the industry about 20 years. So something sort of happened around about 2015, 2016, where diversity and inclusion became more of a topic that was talked about in the industry. For me, I actually transitioned in 2015, and it was something that I didn't see any role models around. FIR ambassadors weren't around at the time. And so when Seeker launched FIR ambassadors, I just sort of grasped it because it was something that I really needed in my life. And that the industry needed, I felt. So so that's how I sort of got involved with FIR Ambassadors. And basically the synergy of FIR Ambassadors fits in with the other things that I do. So I'm quite a widely spread sort of public speaker within the industry. Probably more so, you know, outside of my company than inside of my company. I do quite a lot of public speaking in different organisations. I co-founded Building Equality, which is an LGBT network for the industry, and I used to well, I started running toolbox talks for diversity and inclusion 5 years ago, and the FIR Ambassador scheme seemed to fit right into what I was doing, so it was a perfect synergy, really. And then more recently, the last year, we, along with a few other companies within the industry, we launched a disability network called Constructability. And again, the FIR Ambassadors, there's a few FIR Ambassadors which are part of the committee there. And again, the synergy of the ambassadors in terms of fairness, inclusion, respect, fitted straight in with that network. So it's really been a great vehicle for me to obviously grow my personal interest in inclusion within the industry, but also to grow the FIR Ambassador network across the industry outside my company. But in terms of your question about different companies, it's quite interesting. I've worked for 4 tier 1 contractors now. I've worked for Balfour Beatty, Kia, London, ISG, and Morgan Sindall. I'm currently at Quinn, which is a smaller company, smaller tier 2 construction company. And I think a lot of the large organisations do have FIR Ambassador schemes running. You get to hear through the networking events that various people are ambassadors, and you know, it's interesting to see how they're doing in terms of growing inclusion across their business. And you see that through not just FIR Ambassadors, but you see, you know, women's networks, and you see disability networks, and culture and ethnicity networks as well. So certainly the tier 1s are doing a lot more. And I think companies like mine, which are small, are only just, you know, they're still grasping the inclusion, I suppose, initiative, really, and often they don't know where to go. And so something like the FIR Ambassadors scheme really is a place where they can go to. There's free resources, there's a whole network of ambassadors, and all the social media and e-learning, etc. So it really does help the smaller companies, I think, find a place to go in terms of promoting fairness, inclusion, and respect. You're on mute.
Yeah,
mute. Sorry, my dog barked in the middle of that, as I knew she would, because the postman comes at this time. So my apologies. Thanks, that's great. We are running over, so I am going to have to wrap up fairly quickly. But I know that I'm pretty certain both of you, Christina and Rory, and any other ambassadors will be happy to answer anybody's questions if it's directed through the supply chain school. And if anybody wants to get in touch with any of the ambassadors to find out a little bit more, they are a supportive group. It is a network. We do value their work, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help. I have got 1 or 2 questions quickly in the chat, and that was, will we add the Sarah's film to the flyer that I sent out? Yes, we will add the link to that. I'm sure we can, but also I'm sure it will be accessible on the Supply Chain Schools web page. In addition to that, unless Ian might even have put it on, I'm not quite sure. And then there was another question about the pins for the ambassadors, and yes, they are available, and once you become an ambassador, they'll be shared. So I hope that answers everybody else's questions. I am 3 minutes over time, which is terrible. probably because I talk too much. But I do hope that if you've not got an ambassador, or if you're not an ambassador yourself already, you will now consider that. It is a really worthwhile role. As you've heard from Rory and Christina, they've both developed their knowledge and their skills. They both get a lot out of it. And as I say, I think the industry can only benefit from having as many FIR ambassadors as we possibly can. So please put your name down. I'm sure that you will find the link, or Sarah will share the link to the next programme, so that you can enrol and join the journey. So thank you very much, both Christina and Rory. Lovely to see you both. Hope to see you again in person at some point. Who knows when? Thanks very much. And now back over to you, Ian.
Okay.
Thanks, Bryony.
Bryony, thank you very much. Christina, thank you very much. And Rory, as always, thank you very much. That was a really great session. I enjoyed that. And just to reiterate, the whole purpose of the ambassador journey is to reward and recognise those people who are putting their time and effort in, voluntary in their businesses, to help lead this change. And just picking up on that leading change piece, the ambassadors can help lead change, whatever their role within the organisation is. And just coming back to the previous panel when we talked about, I think it was Beth talking about within her own company, different people were leading as FIR ambassadors, and it can be people, as Bryony made the point, it doesn't have to be your managers, it doesn't have to be your directors, it can be people who are, site managers, it can be supervisors, it can be operatives on site, it can be banks people, it can be whatever it might be. There can be ambassadors, which is great. One final thing from me. Sort of share my screen, because the team always wants to know about, get your feedback to know how we can do things better. So if I just share my screen a moment, if you'd like to, there you go. If you scan that there, that will take you directly to the feedback sheet. I think it's on Google or a Teams form. So just scan the QR code, that will take you to the feedback. It'd be great if you can just spend a couple of minutes just giving us that feedback, or indeed, I'm sure just at this moment my colleague Jenny will be putting into the chat the relevant link to that chat. So in summary, we've launched 2 really big step forwards for the FIR programme today, and it's great to be joined by over 100 of you on this call today. Number 1 is the FIR Growth Assessment. That's all about allowing you as businesses to understand where you currently are, where are you on your journey, what are the next steps you need to go to really embed a culture of fairness, inclusion, respect in your business, and get the benefits, which we all heard those benefits over and over again from large companies and small companies, that you get by embedding this culture of fair in your organisation. We then also talked about how we could get the third-party assessment. We had great examples from our 2 pioneers, and also from See Things and Chaz about how you go about doing those third-party assessments. And great, and encourage as many of you possible to want to do that. I think it's a really useful addition to the FIR programme. And then finally, we heard about the people on the ground who are making this happen, the FIR Ambassador Network, and the fact that we're now recognising the journeys that you are going on as a FIR Ambassador, and recognising that you're going above and beyond all the time to make this change in our industry that our industry so needs, and to to make this industry better for all. And I think having those levels, and if you are a FIR Ambassador currently, if you go into the Supply Chain School account, look at your personal dashboard, you will see what level you're currently at, and that's been based upon what things you've been doing over the past 3 years, and going forward the system will automatically track what you're doing. So if you don't do anything as an ambassador for a year, you don't do any professional development, your levels that you get will slip down and you'll need to restart over. So we're really trying to encourage this professional development going forward all the time. So 3 great things which we've launched today. That's the FIR Growth Assessment, the third-party accreditation to that, and thirdly the FIR Ambassador journey. So lots of great things for you to help you on your journeys to embedding fairness, inclusion, respect into your business, and in actual fact to make this industry a better industry for us all to work in. So thank you for your time. once again, thanks to all our speakers and panelists this morning. It's been really useful having them all here and providing that insight, which I think we've all got. And finally, thanks for you, the audience, for giving up 2.5 hours of your Wednesday morning to learn more about how we can make this industry an even better place for all. Thank you very much.
Can I have the last say, please, Ian? I'd just like to thank the Supply Chain School for all the efforts that they've put into this programme for so long. We really do value it. It is a fantastic resource. It is a really worthwhile programme to enter into. It's now recognised by the CLC, the Construction Leadership Council, the FIR programme. So please engage as much as you can and let us absolutely pick up and, as Ian says, make this the best place to work. And thank you very much.